Let's see how far we come. And please always have your questions. I'm happy to answer them because I might not think about what might be of more interest or further interest. So what I haven't talked about yet is the company. Building up a company is very important. Of course, it depends on the number of actors. I told you that Andrea started with 8 in Vienna and had a great impact on the spectators. We have 26 approximately, plus minus, in Basel, and we will have 50 in Munich. In Stuttgart it was about 40 in the permanent company, always plus some guests for certain productions. And what is very important, it doesn't matter how many actors you can employ, you must always see how you make up the right mixture. So if you have a cast for Kabale und Liebe, and you have then the chambermaid and a servant, So if you can do, with the company you have, you can do twice the cast of Schiller's Intrigue and Love, then you have the right ensemble, because then you can do anything you want to stage, because you have all the characters. That doesn't mean that they have always to perform this way. But this is like, okay, you can say, then you have the good mixture of young and old, of male and female. And we always do the same number of males and females. You know, so if you have 40, you have 20 women, 20 men. And you see that it's in a good way of age, of very young, middle age, old, very old. And this depends on how many budget you have. I mean, how many positions, how many people you can employ. But usually you try to have it in a good mixture. But if you have a small ensemble, you should always try to keep in mind, okay, I need several different characters, and then they can play tragedy, they can play comedy, they can play contemporary and classical drama. They can do everything. This is important. And today you have to have in mind diversity, of course. Because diversity is a subject, as I just said, from Othello, what we staged, what opened last. There was the problem that Nuran really would have liked black actors to perform. But we told him, I mean, we have a company of 26 actors that are white, and we are not going to start with black facing and white facing, because this is really racist, if you do so. And why shouldn't a white person play the black? Why not? I mean, or why shouldn't the whites play the blacks? Because he wanted Othello to be white in Harlem of New York 70s, and all the others be black, and he wanted really us to engage black actors. And then we said, no, it's our company, it's our theater, we want it with our actors, and not having black actors, I don't know, probably not speaking German, or just so you have them really with colored skin. And so we had really lots of discussions with him about diversity, and he asked us, why don't you have a diverse ensemble, a diverse company? And then we said, well, because in Basel it's not the migrant themes, the racism, refugees, it's for Basel, it's not a matter. If you have a company in Berlin, it's completely different, because in Berlin you have a big Turkish community, lots of refugees and lots of people with migrant back, And then it's normal that everybody, I mean, or now that generations are born, even if they have migrant a past, parents' relations or grandparents, they are born in the country usually where they learn to act, or they play, or they direct, and nobody ever asks, where are you from, because you live in the country you live, and then you perform and play. You yourself must decide which way of theater do you want. Do you want a drama theater with classic subjects, or do you want a documentary, like Rimini Protocol, or I don't know if you know these groups that do, or Shishi Pop, or as I say, Elronen at the Gorki Theater Berlin. Then probably you would need another company for the projects you are planning. You would need more diversity than we see ourselves in Munich or now in Basel, because we do other projects. So it always depends on what your artistic approach will be, So to decide whom you engage, yeah. But as I say, it's usually we do it in the same parts of age, of gender, male, female, age, and if you have in mind that you need from the lovely, beautiful Juliet and Romeo and Juliet, you know, you can do the same as with the Schiller Intrigue and Love, because there as well, if you have less budget and less possibilities, probably you always think I need 1 or 2 male and female protagonists, and they play all the big roles. And then you need some who are in the middle, you know, the bigger parts. And then you have for the servants and the maids, and just 1 sentence, you know, you have we call it Wurzen, it's the little roles, you know. And then you have someone say, okay, he's not so good, but okay, for this he will do. And this is, for example, something that Andreas Beck always has denied. He said, no, everybody in my company, because coming from a company of 8, everyone who is in my company has the capacity and the capability to be a protagonist, even if he sometimes has only 1 sentence.
Was there any big conflict between the director, actor, or few actors the time that you have spent there?
Between director and actor, well, of course, it's in every artistic production. I mean, it's not only heaven and peace on earth in our theater, but we have discussions. We have a very open debate culture, you know, open discussion. So, for example, we learn very soon when a director, for example, treats somebody bad, you know, then we get the information from the company. And then Andreas will immediately interfere. So, and then we see how bad it is. It could even be that he says, okay, come on, you won't do anything else here again. Just leave us alone, we put the production...
Did that happen?
Almost.
Once.
Twice. But then we found agreements with the director and we had the opening, but this person will never, ever have a chance to do a production at a house where Andreas is director, you know? So because he says, okay, I mean, we do theater and we have a political interest, we are very intellectual, all of us, and if we don't manage to treat each other the way everybody wants to be treated himself, then it's old-fashioned, you know, like the old man's theater from a long time ago, where you screamed and yelled and had the, you know, you treated the actors or the technicians in a way that it's not very polite.
And can you tell us what is the average payment salary per month in Germany for an actor? I mean, in general, average.
The beginners in Germany start with not so much. It's I think 1,800 euro, and then it's well, I mean, Stuttgart, for example, said you can't live with 1,800 euro in a city like Stuttgart. So Stuttgart pays 2,000 or 2,300 for the beginners, and I think the most what one can earn is around 4,000 to 5,000
per month.
Yeah,
that's good.
But I mean, you have the costs. I mean, the rents, you know, the fees. I mean, you don't find a flat cheaper than 1,000 euro. You know what I mean? And then it's gone.
Of course, yeah.
And insurance costs a lot in Germany. So you have a lot of fixed costs you can't avoid. So there is not so much that rests for the daily living. You know? Yeah. I mean, it's good. It's well paid. So that's why I say in Germany you don't have to do a lot of different. You don't have to drive taxi or work in the restaurant after your show.
Yeah.
And how do you add actors to a company? Like if somebody leaves or retires or stops acting, do you have auditions or do you?
Both, yeah. Well, yeah. For Munich, for example, now we had a lot of auditions, especially for young actors whom you haven't seen yet on stage. You know, all these absolvents from schools.
Last year I'm finishing studies.
So, they just finished their studies, and then we invite them to come to us and show us auditions. We have auditions, or we ask, or as I said before, directors, for example, they could make suggestions because they had worked at other theaters with good actors, and they said, okay, this I would very much like to have in my company. And so we saw, okay, 25 positions you have, and then everybody could say, okay, I want them, I want him, I want her, and then we put the whole puzzle together. And then it's a bit a question of capacity. How many can we in each age, age group of each generation? How many can we really employ? And then it's always a decision of it's always luck as well, because for example we had an audition, and there was a young woman. She was incredible, and then she went on stage with a text she had written herself about a mermaid who wanted to get rid of her tail, and she performed it, and it was so funny. It was just so funny. We were lying under the chairs. We really, and it was an audition, and it was a lot of directors and dramaturgs. We were 25 people here. She was on stage. We were sitting there in the audience, and she performed, and then we found out that it was her first audition, and she hadn't even finished her school, and then we engaged her directly, because we said if she's doing the auditions at the end of her studies, she will become, So we just picked her from the spot, and she will be one of the actresses in Munich, and she will be amazing, I'm sure. No, I don't want to do a bashing of colleagues, but but since we are here in an intimate space.
This will go in media, so don't worry about that.
Names.
I can say, for example, we probably you haven't heard of that, but I have 3 examples actually of the present in Germany. A very, very, very good director who writes as well plays is Armin Petras, who used to be in Berlin at the Gorki Theater. He was director of the Gorki Theater before Schramme-Langhoff. And he did a marvelous job in Berlin, and he had a very, very, very good audience. I mean, Berlin has 20 theaters, so it's a big concurrence. And he had the most interesting audience, young people, migrant, and diverse, also everything, And then he got appointed director of the State Theater of Stuttgart, the National Theater of Stuttgart. And Stuttgart is Swabian, is a bit provincial, and is a smaller city than Berlin. But it's, I mean, we had big success with theater because they are so interested, and they are so fanatic of theater, because Peimann used to do theater there in the 60s, 70s, and people who've been watching for 30 and 40 years theater, they love it, they come and debate and want it. And he went from Berlin, and his whole artistic direction team, the dramaturgs and the actors were brilliant. I haven't seen so brilliant actors in Stuttgart for a long time. But after the first season, it was a catastrophe, because they had the impression that they came from Berlin, from the capital city, and in the province that they just made, this is what they just made what they wanted to make, not having in mind what might be the right thing for Stuttgart and for the audience in Stuttgart, because you don't do it to just have good actors and have good shows, because the directors like Sebastian Hartmann or they work in Berlin. But if they do a 5 or 6 hour thing with lots of nonsense and what is hip in Berlin, like Castorf at the Volksbühne, they have other traditions, and people go there and think it's cool and it's hip, and then they sit there and celebrate each other. But in Stuttgart, everybody thinks, oh, go back to Berlin. We don't want it here, and they haven't seen the signs. They haven't realized that they made a theater that was completely contrary to what the people wanted to see, and so they lost lots of subscribers. Hundreds, thousands yeah, the numbers of spectators went really down, yeah, but radically. But what we started in Basel, we decided, because we have this new company and we wanted to present the company with the first productions. So we had the wish that with the first 3 openings, every actor would have a nice role to be seen on stage, so that the audience can see the new company we are going to see for the next years. And so from the first shows, everybody could see, oh, I like him or I like her, even though you haven't even heard the name before. And we put on stage a very big ensemble place. And we started in the Schauspielhaus. We started with Tony Kushner's Angels in America. And you know, and Trump hadn't been elected at that time. And yeah, afterwards we were, state of the art. I mean, this was really the play of nowadays America. But so we decided. So and then Andreas always asked, oh, is it good to start with such a a play on America in the 80s, and the problem of AIDS, of homosexuality, of this politician, the McCarthy area, very political, and homosexuality, and is it good to start with such a play because it's a statement? Immediately everybody knows, okay, what is the new sound of Schauspiel Stuttgart, Schauspiel Theater Basel, and then it was a risk, but it was one of our biggest successes in the beginning, because they loved the actors, and it was again a 5-hour production with 2 intervals, but they just loved because it was what was treated was so close to things happening after 30 years in America. And it was it was a good decision, even though it was about a subject where we thought, oh, maybe they think, oh, okay, these homosexual subjects on stage, we don't want to see that. No. In the contrary, everybody saw the political vision behind, and it was good. And in our theater, everybody sees every production. And as well in the branches, what happened in Basel is that the singers come to the drama even though they are not Germans, or the ballet dancers who come from everywhere, all over the world. It's an international company, and they don't speak German, all of them, but they all come because they like the company, they like the actors, and they are friends, and so they come and see what they're playing, and the actors go to the ballet and to the opera, and so this is, and what we do for Munich, this was the first time I think this ever happened. We invited more than 20 directors, probably be working in Munich, and asked them to take part 1 weekend in auditions and talking about the future company, and everybody could say whom he wants to have engaged. And most of them hadn't ever had contact with each other. They didn't know each other. Oh yeah, I love your productions, but they haven't met. Or the other said, oh yeah, I always hear your name, and you always work at the same theater, but always, I work in November, December, you work in February, March, and so you are working at the same house, but you don't know each other.
So it doesn't get to like, oh, this performance was better than another one.
Yeah, because usually it's, oh, I hate him, because he has more success than I, and then you say, oh, it's rubbish what he did. This, the usual career problems and jealousy things, and this is at a house where Andreas Beckles, the director, will not have any chance. Then he says, okay, so go somewhere else and find your happiness.
How often do you think about the set design and everything for traveling and other purposes when in pre-production?
We don't before doing the productions, because you will see with Hotel Strindberg as well, this will not be easy to go on tour. So what we could do is we could stage it in Berlin for the festival. And I mean, if people have very big stages and a lot of money, then we can transport it there and do. But it needs a lot of time to set up, and this costs a lot. You have to close the theater and build up the set. No, we don't think about it because we don't really go on tours so often. We are not, I mean, this is, for example, Thomas Osterm. Oh yeah, you met the Schaubühne colleague.
Yes.
Oh no, not you, but yeah, Thomas.
Yeah, we met him.
Oh, yeah. No, because Ostermeier, he took over the Schaubühne years ago, and he has a very successful model of programmation. That he always thinks of going on tour and abroad, and he really is touring all over the world with the German theatre. But this you can only do if you produce it it's production, and you have a lot of things you can play parallel in Berlin when you go on tour, and the set designs are always like that it doesn't cost too much to go on tour. But the theatre is smaller. And it's a different way of thinking of programming, because he has all these invitations and now he can react. But we are doing theatre for Basel, and then it doesn't matter if it's like that. Yeah, we can stage it in a day for the evening performance, and so we don't really think about going on tour and handling of set designs, which sometimes is a pity when we are invited and could go on tour, but yeah, but we do as I explained, we do theatre for the city. We are playing, and it's nice, and people have to come to see.
Langsam, Wojciech, langsam, eins nach dem andern. Jeder Mensch ist ein Abgrund. Es schwindelt einen, wenn man hinabsieht. Wojciech, er läuft ja wie ein offenes Rasiermesser durch die Welt.
Was? Der Mond rot aufgeht.
Wie ein blutig Eisen. Warum bläst Gott nicht die Sonne aus, dass alles in Unzucht sich übereinander wälzt? Mann und Weib, Mensch und Vieh, tut's am hellen Tag.
Yeah.
Yeah, wow. Bravo.
And you know, the company, nobody had ever heard of any of these actors. And now that we were invited with Three Sisters, with Wojciech to Berlin, now everybody knows our company, you know, and it's yeah. This is the Swiss Trobitz, who is the master of slowliness and works with music as well. It's always very different.
Yes. Is
The set design is completely different.
Yeah. Is this the same menu? I mean, the same.
Yeah, it's all in the Schauspielhaus. Amazing.
Staatsminister. Und es wird ein Dekret erlassen, dass wer sich Schwielen in die Hände schafft, unter Kuratell gestellt wird, dass wer sich krank arbeitet, kriminalistisch strafbar ist.
Ah
Es ist ein trauriges Wort. Kommen. Will man ein Einkommen, so muss man stehlen. An ein Aufkommen ist nicht zu denken, als wenn man sich hängen lässt. Ein Unterkommen findet man erst, wenn man begraben wird. Und ein Auskommen hat man jeden Augenblick mit seinem Witz, wenn man nichts mehr zu sagen weiß, wie ich zum Beispiel eben. Und Sie, ehe Sie noch etwas gesagt haben, Ihr Abkommen haben Sie jetzt gefunden und Ihr Fortkommen werden Sie jetzt zu suchen. Also Mensch, du bist doch nichts als ein schlechtes Wortspiel.
Thank you for
Thank
your
you so
attention.
much.
Thank you for your interest.